Hi, everyone. This is attorney Arkady Frekhtman, a New York City personal injury trial attorney, and welcome to Last Week Tonight Live, where we answer your questions and we talk about your comments. So we are here live today, and I guess we're going to start. I apologize. We were supposed to start a little bit earlier, but there was an issue with the live stream with the video, so we started just a little bit later. So let me go to some of the questions in the channel, so I can maybe start with those. And if people join live, they could always ask us questions here live in the chat. So let me see here. What do we have in terms of questions? Go to the comments here. Okay. Let's see. See what kind of questions we have. We have a bunch of comments, and well, here's a question from a Michael Belcher. He says, does New York pay more for injuries? I hear it's a lot less in Texas. There was a car dealership with an unsecured rug, a slip and fall. I tore my quad tendon. So yeah, what I would say is that, New York does pay on average more. New York pays a relatively fair amount in terms of like the juries in New York, but it also depends on where you are. Like, for example, if you're in a good venue, like in the Bronx or in Brooklyn, then you're more likely to get a substantial verdict, like get full justice for your injuries. If you are in a more conservative location, like maybe even like Westchester, Staten Island, upstate New York, some places, then it's a lot tougher. And I think Texas is the same. I'm not too familiar with Texas, but I have a few friends that practice in Texas, and I heard that like South Texas, maybe closer to the Mexican border and like Laredo, that area, I think is a very plaintiff-friendly area. But then some other areas could be much more defense-oriented or much more conservative. So it just depends on the venue. But the injury sounds very serious. A quad tendon, if it required surgery, I think, yeah, the person said, yeah, they were recovering from surgery and the rug wasn't secured and his leg slipped. So that sounds like, it's a really serious injury, because it says now he has to have a cadaver tendon in there, and he may need another surgery. So I think that, yeah, definitely. I don't know where in Texas, but definitely that should be worked up. Probably it's good to get a safety expert on that case like that, and like maybe a safety engineer expert, and that could be a big case. That could be a really big case because the injuries are so severe. So if you win on liability, then if you end up going to court, you would have like a really big damages verdict. And you don't necessarily even have to go all the way to trial. Most cases do settle. So if they see that, hey, we have a safety violation here because this rug was unsecured and that's why I fell, and then we have this big injury, which you could talk about through medical records, through your doctors, through your own testimony, through maybe taking some depositions of friends, family members, neighbors, people that know you, that know how you were affected, then they put that all together. Because what they do is they assess their risk and they see, look, there's a plethora of evidence here. There's a lot of evidence that we did something wrong and that this is a real, true life-changing injury. So we have to pay. We have to pay on this one. And then you can get a lot more that way. So. Okay, let me see what other questions we have here. Somebody from Washington says, I was hit by a car on my birthday and I hired a pro bono attorney. I don't know what she means by pro bono. Pro bono usually means a free attorney. So I don't know if she means free or if she means like a personal injury attorney, because some lawyers, it's free until they win, so it's always like that in personal injury, meaning there's no fee, but then when they win money for you, you're going to pay a third of what the attorney wins, so that's a little different. So I don't know if she means pro bono that's completely free. I don't think so. I don't think there's too many pro bono lawyers doing personal injury. Probably it's a contingency fee. And then she says that the lawyer has not been communicating. And That's not good. Yeah, you always want a lawyer that's going to be communicating with you. I mean, the lawyer doesn't have to be like communicating with you every single day, but it is important for the lawyer to communicate with you about important things. When important things happen in your case, for example, when they're filing a lawsuit, when they're before your deposition, to prepare you so that you're ready for your deposition so you could testify well, that's important. Things like that. You want the lawyer to get to know you, especially before trial. The lawyer should, maybe, I like to go to the client's house, really meet them, find out who they are, not interview them, interview their friends, coworkers, really get a sense of who they are, right? Because what you're doing as a lawyer is you're telling their story. So you can't really tell someone's story if you don't know them, right? Because then say you stand up and they say, plaintiffs, give your opening statement. The judge reads all their rules. That's called the charge in New York. And then they say, give your opening statement. You get up there. If you don't know your client, how are you going to tell their story? You're not going to be very effective. So it's important to really spend time with the client, understand them. And then I feel like if you do that, then the story is almost like inside you, And I mean, of course, you want to prepare. Some lawyers will write out their opening, like word for word. Some lawyers will use like slides or like PowerPoints, different slides. And the slides will be their kind of like their roadmap. And they look at the slides and then they're like, okay, so that's what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about that. And as they go through the slides, they know what to talk about. Some lawyers will use like index cards, whatever method you have. I don't like to use any notes, but I'll maybe use slides if it's allowed. In New York, they don't like to let you use slides, but so I really think that slides are good. And people have like shorter attention spans now, so having slides up there is really like interesting for people, because they see pictures of, oh, what's that? And then you talk about the picture, whether it's a damages slide or a liability slide, whatever it may be. So I think it really works. But she's just basically saying that she has a 2-year statute of limitations, and she's upset that the police report was incorrect and the lawyer is just not communicating. So yeah, you could always feel free to reach out to me. If I do know some lawyers, I probably have to do a little bit of due diligence because I do know some lawyers in Washington State. I don't know if those lawyers take like car accident cases. Like, I mean, the lawyers I know are like some of the top lawyers. They might only take certain level of case. They might only be wanting like some kind of crazy traumatic brain injury, super duper case. I don't know if it qualifies, but they probably can recommend someone else that takes more of like a common case. And I could do a little research and find out who's good up there. But I know Washington's a good venue for these cases, and they have the bad faith law, so that's good. Okay, let's see what else. Good Scout says hello. Yes, hi. Thank you for watching. And then Nature Boy says, how long does a plaintiff testify at trial? How many minutes? Well, it just depends. Like, there's different kinds of cases. Like, for example, in New York, there's something known as a summary jury trial. So in a summary jury trial, it's a trial that will be done in 1 hour, right? So, the trial will be done in 1 day, but the plaintiff only testifies for 1 hour or less. You can't testify for more than an hour. But if it's a regular trial, you could testify for a long time. I mean, your lawyer will probably have you up there for at least an hour, maybe more. You could take breaks, an hour, then maybe a break, maybe a half an hour more. It shouldn't be too long. You don't want the jury to like fall asleep, You want to keep it interesting and just important things. And then the defense lawyer is going to cross-examine you. So then when they cross-examine you, we don't know how long that could be. That could be another 30 minutes, hour. If they have any kind of important points to make, and they could be, if there's a lot of cross-examination material, then it might be extended. I think the last trial I did, my plaintiff testified for about an hour, and then cross-examination was short. It was like maybe 30 minutes, maybe less. They didn't really have much to say. And then you could do redirect after they cross-examine the plaintiff, the injured person. Then your lawyer can redirect and then try to go over the same subject as the cross-examination and kind of bring you back. If they hurt you on anything, then you bring the client back, meaning like, if they explain whatever you feel might have hurt you. Okay. And then also Nature Boy says, can you do a video on testifying at trial? Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I'll do a video about that. I think I did some videos about like how to be a good witness, something like that. I think I even took like a little I found the news story, and it was interesting. I think it's just the news reporter interviewed like a lady, and I don't know if that one is published. I'm gonna check, but I think it was like how to be a good witness. It was funny. She just did a good job. She like painted a picture, and she answered the news reporter's questions. And I thought that's how you want to be a good witness, just like be able to paint a picture, tell a story, be calm, don't argue, definitely don't argue, especially with the defense lawyer. It's better to just admit something and say, yes, that's true. Because if you admit to what they're, cross-examining you on, if it's not that important anyway, you say, yes, that's true, then they're done. There's nowhere else you can go. But if you fight with them, you're like, no. And they're like, but look, I have the, and then they have it, whatever they have it, maybe in the medical records that you did say that, or that the doctor did say something, and you're fighting it, then you just seem like you're combative. It just seems like you're hiding something. Like, why don't you want the truth to come out, right? So it's better to just admit something and just be like, yes, okay, fine, it's true. And then you're done, So, but yeah, testifying at trial is important. And it's hard for people because people don't have that experience. It's rare that someone is going to have experience testifying at a trial. It's not something that common everyday people do. So yeah, that's definitely true. Okay, and then um, okay, and someone says they have a sexual assault case in their work. Yeah, I mean, feel free to text me. I'm happy to do a consultation. I couldn't tell you like the value just from that because it would depend on where it is, what the facts are, what the damages are, the extent of the medical treatment. But sexual assault cases are very serious. We're handling a few of the Boy Scout cases, also the cases against the Catholic Church. There are many cases there. We're doing some institutions like prisons and various institutions. Um, there's also sometimes those recovery houses. But I mean, there's all types of sexual assault cases. New York had the Child Victims Act, where there was a look back window, and now they have the Adult Survivors Act, where adults can sue. And a lot of lawyers that used to specialize or still specialize in personal injury, I see when I go to their website, when that now they're like, have you been sexually abused? Now they're like completely in this new practice area. But you want to be careful because just because a lawyer is advertising for something doesn't mean they're an expert in it, right? They could be one of those billboard lawyers where yesterday they were doing car accidents, and today all of a sudden they're saying I'm the sexual abuse expert, but there's no way they could make that shift. You can't become an expert in a day. So you have to use your brain a little bit. But I know the actual sexual abuse experts and lawyers, that former prosecutors, that really, really good in that field, that that are some of the best. Okay, and then Chris says, do you feel Louisiana is a good venue? Yeah, I mean, Louisiana, I think so. I mean, it's hard to generalize because that's an entire state. So I'm sure there, just like we talked about in New York and Texas, there could be some good areas and some more conservative areas. But I think generally Louisiana, from what I've seen, from what I've heard from others, especially like near maybe New Orleans, that area, and other cities, other like metropolitan areas, has been pretty good, pretty fair to plaintiffs from what I've seen, just from other lawyers. And again, that's a place where I know a lot of really good lawyers that get really good results. So I'm happy to, if you needed a second opinion from somebody in Louisiana, I know some excellent, excellent lawyers. And when I go to some of these continuing legal educations, I meet a lot of lawyers from Louisiana. Um, some big firms that talk about how to run your firm the best way. They're really big. Some smaller firms that are some smaller firms as well. Yeah, absolutely. So I'll give you a call about that. I'll give you a call. And oh yeah, the person says we were supposed to talk this week. Okay, so I'll give you a call. Yeah, I apologize. I wasn't able to call everybody back because I was busy preparing for this trial, and I had a few other things like depositions, court. Things always come up. You get busy as a lawyer, unfortunately. But I'll reach out. Maybe tomorrow is Friday. It should be a little quieter. I'll try to reach out tomorrow. Maybe we could chat about it if you needed a second opinion, because they say it's in New Orleans. Okay. And then Nature Boy says that he's been fighting a case for 4 years. There have been no offers, or at least that he knows of, and it's a trip and fall in a McDonald's parking lot with a back fusion surgery, 2 epidural shots, and a knee surgery. It's all in Brooklyn. And how much is that worth? I mean, that could be, I mean, it's hard for me to say, just based on a few words, it's hard for me to really guess what a case might be worth. You could imagine, like, if your lawyer can't tell you what it's worth, and they have the whole file, right, with all the medical records, all the everything basically, and they know you. So it's hard for me to say, but I would say, I mean, just on a rough ballpark, if you're talking about a trip and fall, if the trip and fall was because of a dangerous, unsafe condition, such as a hole in the parking lot, then that makes your case stronger, okay? So then the injuries, you have a fusion. It would depend on like how many levels is the fusion. Is it 1 level? Is it 2 levels? And also fusions, the problem with fusions is what they're doing in a fusion surgery is they're essentially going into the spine, okay? And because the disc is herniated, right? The disc is like a jelly donut. So let's say the jelly donut explodes and whatever's inside that jelly donut, the jelly is leaking out and it's touching those nerve roots. And I could actually show you on a model, like over here, right? So if that's what's happening, what they're doing with the fusion is they're taking screws, and they're drilling screws into the bone, into the vertebrae, and then they're putting a plate, right? And now the disc is gone. They remove the disc, and they take from the crest of the hip, they take some other bone, and they put that in there. And the reason they're doing that, known as a bone graft, the reason they're doing all that is because they're hoping that the bones above and below from where they remove the injured disc are going to unify together and regrow. And that's why they shave the bone down, they shave it and they shave it, because all that kind of like spurs bone growth, and they're hoping that it'll unify and it'll regrow. But sometimes it doesn't. That's known as non-union. It doesn't regrow. But you have these, screws in your bone, in your back, and your back is supposed to be, obviously malleable. This is just a minor model, but I could show you on a bigger model over here. I have a bigger model. Check it out. You see, this is an actual full spine. You see, it's supposed to like bend. It's your back. You're supposed to be able to move, right? But now, when they do the fusion, you can't move anymore because they've already put that plate there, and they put screws in there. And sometimes it's so serious that they do it from the front and they do it from the back. You might have rods in the back, known as posterior, but in the front they put the plate. So that's like so serious. And then if it doesn't, unify together, then forget it. Then you're in real trouble, and you might need a second surgery. So I think a fusion is always very, very serious. I think a fusion could be worth into the millions easily into the millions. We settled the fusion case for I think 3 million, and we settled another one for, what was it, 1.8 million. So those are settlements. So and there have been verdicts. I mean, there was one verdict I think for over 9 million on a fusion, and that was out in like a Suffolk County, which is a pretty conservative, bad venue for plaintiffs. So fusions could command substantial money, and plus you have a knee surgery, and I think the person says that it's a 1 million, and the other side has 25 million umbrella. So that's good. I mean, no, that's a great case. I think you should definitely get a good amount on that, as long as everything is like liability has to be secure. You have good liability. You have strong damages. I would get into like a little bit about your biography, but that should be a big case. And then he also asks, when will I get a trial date if the last deposition was January of this year? So if the last deposition was January, you could check like e-law or the New York, it's called NYSIF, the New York State electronic filing system. Because if your case is on the trial calendar, then you might be able to get a trial date within about a year, maybe a little bit more than a year. And Brooklyn's been pretty good. They've been pretty good. Other places like the Bronx has been really slow, but Brooklyn has been pretty good. So it should be coming up. So good luck. That's a good case. Okay, let me see what else. What other questions do we have? And somebody says, does that also go for workers' comp cases with lumbar fusions? Yeah, Workers' comp is a little different. Depends which state it's in, because every state has their own workers' comp rules. Workers' comp, I think you could also settle it. It's known as a Section 32 settlement. It's not the same as personal injury because usually you don't get those really large verdicts in workers' comp because there's no jury and it's more of a way to just get your medical bills paid and get your lost wages paid. But then you could do a Section 32. That's what they call it in New York when you do like a lump sum settlement. So that's usually how it works. But you should ask the workers' comp lawyer that you have, and they'll be able to give you all the details. But yeah, I mean, workers' comp is definitely should be something. Okay, and then okay, let's see what else we have here. Mike Richards says, when the defense attorneys acknowledge that the plaintiff has no fault or liability, why do they send you to the IME and to have a physical exam? Hmm. So the plaintiff has no fault. Well, no fault, I mean, no fault basically just means the way no fault works is they call it no fault. It means that they don't care who's at fault. What they do is they give you insurance. So it's the car that you're sitting in, or if you're a pedestrian, it's the car that makes contact with you. And all it means is that you're just going to get insurance available to you so you can get all your medical care up to $50,000. But the reason they send you to the IMEs is because, let's say you get into a car crash, right? You're sitting in your car and you have, let's say, Allstate, and somebody else hits you in the rear. Allstate, your insurance is going to pay for all your medical bills up to $50,000. But Allstate doesn't want to become your healthcare provider. Like if you had Oxford or you had Medicaid, Medicare, they're not going to pay all your medical bills for the rest of your life, right? So the way they stop paying is they send you to their doctor, which is known as an IME, but really it's a DME, a defense medical exam. And that doctor is going to do a quick exam and is going to say, you don't need any more benefits. So now they could, rely on that doctor's report and say, look, we sent him to a neurologist, to a chiropractor, to an orthopedic. All of these doctors say he doesn't need any more treatment. So we're going to stop paying. And they usually do that, maybe about 4 months after you start your therapy, like 4 months in. That's usually when they do it. And then they cut you off, and then you can't treat anymore. So then if you file a lawsuit, you have to prove a serious injury. People will continue to treat using their health insurance, using a lien, letter of protection, some other method. And then in the lawsuit, they'll send you to a DME again, but that's a different DME. Here, the DME will come to court and testify that you're not that hurt, so they give you less money. Whereas your doctors, your treating doctors, your surgeons are going to testify you are hurt, that it is permanent, to get you more money. So it's like a battle of the experts. That's the DME at trial. And the other DME for the no fault is at the beginning, before you even file the lawsuit. That's more like health insurance to cut you off. So I hope that's helpful. But yeah, that's a good question. Okay. Let's see what other question we have. Oh, somebody's saying if I have a suggestion for a Colorado workers' comp attorney. I don't really know. I don't really do workers' comp, so I probably don't, unfortunately. I could do a little research and try to find someone, but I mostly do personal injury. I do know some good Colorado personal injury lawyers. I mean, they may know in turn some workers' comp lawyers that they could recommend, but I don't unfortunately know. They're saying it's a personal injury case rec, 2-level disc replacement, 2-level fusion. Hmm. Yeah, that's a serious case. That could be a really big case. Yeah, I definitely know Colorado. Just let me know. You could text me the 347-566-9595. Let me know where in Colorado, like which city or next to which big city, and I could try to find someone good for like a second opinion if you wanted one. I'm sure the personal injury lawyer will know because every personal injury lawyer will know workers' comp lawyers, because when they get work accident cases, the personal injury lawyer will do the work accident case against, let's say, the third party defendant, and then the workers' comp lawyer would get the injury victim, the worker, benefits like their lost wages, their medical bills paid, things like that. Okay. And somebody says, how long does it take after you file a lawsuit to get a settlement conference? I mean, it depends where, every place is a little different. But I would say in New York, usually if you file a lawsuit, you get a preliminary conference, that could be quick, anywhere from 30 to 45 days, maybe, like, just about, maybe a little longer, like a few months if it's some issue where, because when you file a lawsuit, what you're doing is you're naming all the defendants, and then all of them have to be served, but then all of them have to, what's known as, answer the lawsuit. And that just means that they're going to appear. And by appearing, they file a notice of appearance, and then they file an answer to the lawsuit, because the lawsuit makes certain allegations, like it says that you were injured, that they were negligent, that they owned a certain property, whatever it is. You have certain allegations, and they're numbered, like number one, number two, and then they'll answer that when they say, number one, we deny it. Number two, we don't have information about that. Number three, we admit this, and that we admit that we're a corporation, but we deny this, and then everything like lines up, and then you actually put, it's called marked pleadings. When you go to trial, you actually put on the complaint, you put D, deny, DKI, deny knowledge or information, meaning like I don't have enough knowledge or information to answer that, or they put or they put A for admitted. I mean, they don't really admit usually, but they might admit some basic things. And so that's usually how they do it, for so basically, to get all the way to a settlement conference, I mean, it could take a little bit longer. It could take probably a few more months, because usually settlement conferences are after depositions are done. So usually that could be, you could be a little bit like a year out, I would say, for a settlement conference. But for a preliminary conference, that's usually just a few months, like 2-3 months. Okay. And then he says, what firm would you recommend in the New Orleans area? Personal injury versus a commercial vehicle? Yeah, I mean, like, I don't like to like really recommend firms like that. Like, I'd probably have to speak with you and get a little bit more details, and then I could maybe recommend one to you privately, because it just depends. But I do know, I'd have to really listen to everything, all the facts and circumstances, and then I could maybe provide somebody to you, because it's just different kinds of lawyers, right? There's lawyers that are more like smaller lawyers that are really good. There are bigger firms that are very good too. So it just depends like what you need. There are lawyers that specialize in like truck accidents, others specialize in construction. So it just depends on what you need, but that's more of like we need to do a consult for that. Okay. Let me see, maybe I'll do one or two more questions. Kevin says, I wanted to know if an attorney drop you suited their firm size. I'm not sure what that means. Drop you suit to their firm size? Or maybe drops your case because their firm size is too small, they can't handle it. Would that be a problem for future attorneys during the lawsuit? No, I mean, if somebody drops you because they just can't handle your case because their firm size, that maybe their firm is too small and they don't have the resources, that wouldn't affect you. You just have to find a new attorney. But that doesn't say anything about your case. Your case is still strong. It's just they couldn't handle it for whatever reason. Okay, let's see. What does it mean when a notice of intention to take a deposition by written questions is a Department of Public Safety is filed? So that just basically means they want to take a deposition. We don't have that in New York, so I couldn't really say exactly. I don't know if that's the same as interrogatories. Interrogatories are when you actually give written questions, right? Like you ask questions and then someone else has to answer them in written form. and then send it back to you. Now, there's also a deposition where you either on Zoom like this or in person, and you just ask questions and they answer questions, and there's a court reporter there, a stenographer, and the stenographer will write everything down, transcribe everything. Some of the depositions even get recorded, so you have a video recording, and then you could play that recording at trial. So it's pretty powerful. So it's either one or the other. It's either the written depositions, only written, or it's the full deposition. And then T-Body says, hello from Chicago. Why does a bus accident take so long? Clear liability vehicle stopped while hit by a bus. Lawyer says he will be doing discovery on my case and getting a deposition 14 months ago. I mean, a bus accident, unless it's like a city bus, if it's a municipality, like here, if you're suing, with a government bus, like a city bus, like in New York, if you're suing, let's say, the New York City Transit Authority, those cases tend to take longer because they go to a special part. They have a transit part, okay? And they have a city part, and they have a special judge for that part. And because they get so many cases, I guess, or maybe because, I don't even know why, but they're really slow in that part. So if you had the same case against a private bus, let's say you sued Greyhound, you wouldn't go to that part. You would just go to the regular part. So you might, be able to get a preliminary conference with the court in like 2 months, do your depositions within the next 6 months, and then file a note of issue. Now you're on the trial calendar. They either have to pay you, or if they don't pay you, well, you're going to get a trial date, and it's coming up, right? Because you're already on the trial calendar, meaning you're waiting in line. You're in line waiting for the trial and being in line at the store. But with the city part, what they'll do is they'll tell the city, hey, city, you have to provide documents. You know what they'll do? They won't provide you with anything. They just never provide you with anything. And then you make a motion and you say, hey, the judge said you have to provide me with documents. Where are my documents? And they'll say, they'll write some ridiculous thing like, oh, we're so busy, we're the city, blah, 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 blah. Give us some more time. Then after you make like 3 or 4 of these motions, and each motion takes like 4 months, 5 months for the judge to decide, maybe then they'll finally give you some documents. Probably won't be everything that you need or want, but they'll give you something. And then you have to go back and keep fighting with them to get all the documents. And then only when that's all done, and then if they have to produce a witness for a deposition, what they'll usually do is produce like a know-nothing witness that doesn't know anything, just waste the deposition. And you say, wait a minute, you have to produce this person who actually knows something. So to get that deposition will also take time. And then when you finally get a deposition and you get all your documents, then you could certify it as trial ready. So it just takes longer. It's just slower. Even in Germans, like if you go to a private part, like against Greyhound bus, they could say, okay, come back. You had your preliminary conference. That's your scheduling order for everything. Come back in like 3 or 4 months. In the city part, they might say, okay, you had your schedule. Come back in like 2024. Meanwhile, wait a minute, why can't I come back in like 3 or 4 months? It's just much slower with the city. But for the specifics of your case, I would say, you probably should reach out to your lawyer, of course, because it's in Chicago. But I'm just talking about how it usually happens in New York with the city, with the transit. It's very slow, unfortunately. Yeah, so it's just the way it is. Yeah. Oh, and he also asks, what's the difference between a government entity and a regular insurance company? Yeah, so usually the difference is an insurance company is private, right? So an insurance company insures their policyholder, and an insurance company has a certain limit, like 1 million. Sometimes they have 1 million with 10 million umbrella, whatever it is. But with the city, usually they don't have any limits, which is a good thing because it's just the budget of the city. So if you go and you get a verdict of, I don't know, $50 million, they have to pay you. Well, they'll probably appeal and say it's excessive, but it's unlimited in that sense. So that's how they're different, because you're going up against the city. So it's just the budget of the city. So in that sense, it's good, but it is slow. And then Chris says, quick question, do injuries stack? Like, let's say a payout for a broken tibia is one thing, but you also have a broken femur. Do they pay individually, or is it treated as one injury? No, I mean, they'll pay you like, let's say a settlement, they'll give you one amount for everything, but they'll take into consideration all of your injuries. Like, for example, if you have like a tibia, they'll say, okay, a broken tibia is worth like 500,000, but then a broken femur is worth another 500,000. They'll give you $1 million altogether, like that. That's the way it should be. Sometimes they'll discount a little bit if it's like the same body part. Like, for example, if you start and you have like physical therapy for a herniated disc, they might say, well, that's just physical therapy. That's worth like 10 grand. But if you do epidural injections, now they say, well, you've done the type of surgery, it's an epidural steroid injection. Now we think it's worth maybe like, 50,000. And then if you do a discectomy pain management, now they say, well, now it's worth 150, 200, maybe 300,000. And then if you end up needing a fusion, then they say, okay, now all of this with a fusion probably worth like 1.5 million, 2 million. So that's usually how it works. But yeah, but basically they do take into account everything. And then Hannah says, if my case takes a long time, does that mean I'm going to get a high compensation? I think she means. I mean, possibly. You'd have to really like find out why it's taking a long time. I mean, sometimes it's hard for clients, but the best way to do it is just to, speak to your lawyer and ask your lawyer like what's happening and why is it taking a long time, and then your lawyer could talk to you and give you some information, and then that'll then because it could also take a long time because the lawyer's like just busy, or the lawyer's just given up on it, or the lawyer thinks it's not a good case. So it just depends, it just depends. Hopefully it's because it's a complicated case and they're taking a lot of depositions and they're doing everything correctly. But the only way to really know that would be for you to stay on top of it, to meet with them, to follow up, call them, review your file. If you feel like they're not doing a good job, you can always get a second opinion. Yeah. Okay, let me see, one or two more questions and then I have to run, but I'll do another one next week. I like doing these lives, and I'll do some more videos. Let me know also like what topics you guys want for the regular videos. I'm happy to do like another a few videos. I have about 3 or 4 videos that I haven't published yet that I've done. I think one is about truck accidents, about Amazon. I had another one about that parking collapse that happened in downtown Manhattan. Just a quick video about that, and a few others. But like I'm happy to do some other ones, whatever people are interested in. Really, the channel is for you, right? It's for the injury victims, for people who care about personal injury, who want to learn more. So whatever you want to talk about. I've also like watched a few interesting CLEs. Those are the continuing legal educations. There was one interesting one on soft tissue injuries. So I'm going to watch that again and maybe take some notes and maybe prepare an outline and do a video about that. And then there was one about brain injury today, actually. That was interesting from a doctor. So I'm going to watch that one again and then take some notes and then do a video about that one as well. Because brain injury is something that I'm handling a few cases, and I always like to learn more about brain injury. And the same thing with trucking accidents, the same with, and then the other one about soft tissue. Soft tissue is interesting because, people usually say, oh, it's just a soft tissue case. It's not worth anything. It's just like a little boo-boo. You have a little contusion. But this particular educational training was about how to turn a soft tissue injury. Let's say you just have like a bulging disc and you don't do much, right? It's soft tissue. You don't get the fusion, but you have that bulging disc. And they were saying, how do you turn that into like a 7-figure outcome, meaning $1 million outcome? So I want to watch that, and then if it's, I think it's a good one from what I saw and some of the reaction I heard from other lawyers. People really like that one. So if it's helpful, I could talk about it and give that knowledge to everyone. Okay, let's see. Let me see a few more questions. There's okay. Oh, here's a question. H. Chambers, what's the law on a premise liability lawsuit with the owners not deleting their Ring camera footage with proof of the accident that happened on your property? So the owner has the Ring camera footage. So yeah, I mean, I would always try to get that. I mean, if you're the injury victim and you want to get the footage, you could subpoena that. You could do what's known as a notice to preserve. So if they have it, you serve them with a notice to preserve. Then if they get rid of it, it's actually known as spoliation, because now they've spoiled the evidence, right? This is evidence that's crucial, and they've spoiled it. They've gotten rid of it. So then when it comes to the trial and they don't have it, what you could do is the judge will read a jury charge in the pattern jury instructions, and he'll tell the jury that you can infer that that video showed something that was bad for the defendants, right? Because why else would they get rid of it? If it was helpful for them, they would not get rid of it. So that's usually what they do with those kind of cases. But yeah, but if they don't delete it and they have it, then just get it and then you could use it. I use video a lot, like with slip and falls. In fact, like this week we were reviewing a case, and it was actually funny because it was a slip and fall on ice, and this lady is walking down the sidewalk. And then when we took the deposition of the defendant, he's a property owner, he's a landlord. He goes, I clean my sidewalk. I'm the best. He said, they actually said this. He goes, I'm the best. I'm awesome. Like I know how to clean snow. I've been cleaning snow for 20 years. In fact, my whole family cleans. It's me and my wife and my kids. We all come out. We all have shovels. We have salt. We all clean. It's always spotless. But then we have the video of her falling, and you see like snow all over the place. And then he goes, and I shovel my driveway, and you see his driveway. His driveway is just covered with snow. I'm like, sir, is this true what you're telling us? And he's like, well, maybe I forgot. So it's like, videos are great. If you could get videos, they're really good. Okay, and then Hannah says, you are the best lawyer. Seriously, how can I contact you? Yeah, absolutely. Just text me. That's what I say is the best way, probably. 347-566-9595. You could just text me, and then I'll text you back, and we could just find a time that's convenient. I'm also trying to like maybe set up some office hours, meaning like maybe some time where you could book a call through like one of those apps like Calendly. It's like a calendar, and you can choose a time. Maybe I'll try to do like Tuesday afternoons, Thursday or Friday afternoons, like an hour, hour and a half, maybe 15-minute increments, and then you could just book a call. Or you could fill out that form. We have the form. I think it should be in the description to this video and to all our videos. It's called a formaloo, and it just has some really basic information like your name, your phone number, what happened, the facts. And what I say to people is just like, if you could tell me, like, imagine I'm sitting there and I'm watching what happened to you, right? Like I'm watching it in a movie theater, right? Or on Netflix, whatever. I'm watching it. So tell me enough information so I could visualize it, so I could see it happening. And that's always helpful. And then tell me your injuries. Like if you know your injuries, like for example, I had a fusion or I had this. And if you don't know your injuries, you could just say I have a symptom, like my arm hurts or my leg hurts, or whatever it is. Just as much information as you have. And of course, let us know like where, the city, and then we'll be happy to help. Okay. Let's see. And then Blake Woodcrest says, Arkady is the best. Thank you so much. Arkady, are you familiar with laser spine surgery and its value versus spinal fusions? Yeah, I mean, like, I think laser spine surgery could have significant value too. It may be, I haven't seen, honestly, I haven't seen too many cases with laser spine. I've seen the percutaneous discectomy where it's almost like a striker decompressor. It spins, and then what it does is it decompresses the disc. So like we talked about, it's a jelly donut, right? It's leaking, it's touching the nerve roots. So then it's decompressing the disc and it's removing that red part, the leak, from the disc. So then when you're done, the disc is supposed to be like a perfect circle without the leak, because when it's leaking out, it's touching the nerve roots. But I haven't seen too many of the laser. I'd have to do a verdict search. I'll do a verdict search on that. Maybe do a video about that. That's interesting. But I know that they do offer the laser spine surgery, and some of it is very good. And it's like more of a new technology. And then Chris says, would you say it's harder to win a case versus a trucking company or a regular insurance company? I mean, a trucking company could be a regular insurance company. Usually they are. I mean, usually trucks are insured by regular private insurance companies. But a trucking company versus, let's say, like a car, I mean, it depends on the case. It depends on the circumstances. If there's any kind of unsafe conduct, I would go, I'd rather have the truck, because trucks usually have more insurance available. So they have more to pay you. And then they have to do more things. Like, for example, a driver can't drive more than a certain number of hours without taking a break. Sometimes drivers could be driving, but they could also be like on some kind of drug or stimulant, right? Sometimes they fail to maintain the vehicle, like they fail to check the brakes or fail to check the tires. So there's just a lot of things. Sometimes when I do a trucking case and I'll send my discovery demand, it's like 100 different things that they have to answer. And then so you have a lot more like ammunition to go after them than you would in a regular car crash case. So I think a trucking company case is always strong. Yeah. Okay, I hope this has been helpful. Thank you for watching, everyone. Please like and subscribe to our channel. Let us know what other topics you want to hear about. And we are here for you. Okay, have a great night and bye-bye.